Hi, it's Mike Smith with Indie Film Nation, and on today's program we're chatting to Morgan Spurlock.
Action, here we go. I'm gonna show you what I know. Break it free from the mainstream, the studio machine. I want it my way. Indie Film Nation, I want it my way. Indie Film Nation, going all the way. Indie Film Nation, you know it's gotta be Indie Film Nation.
Yoo-hoo! Osama!
If I've learned anything from big-budget action movies, it's that complicated global problems are best solved by one lonely guy.
Where are you going to be going?
We're going to go look for Osama Bin Laden.
Where in the world is Osama Bin Laden?
This is a good moisturizer? Yeah. It'll keep my hands really soft? Yeah? And do you know where I could find Osama Bin Laden?
How are you today, Morgan?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Mate, fantastic film, very enjoyable, and you've tackled the big issues here. We had American consumerism with fast food, and now you've gone after the big bogey.
Yeah.
Where did the idea come from? At what point along this journey over the last couple of years did the idea come from, and how did it actually manifest itself?
Yeah, we got the idea for the film in 2005. We had just finished our first season of 30 Days, the TV series that we do in the States. And we were trying to figure out what the next movie would be, like what film did I want to try and tackle next. And about that time, Osama put out a new tape, and suddenly he was everywhere. He was on every TV station, every news station, and everybody's like, "Where is this guy? Why haven't we found him? Where's Osama bin Laden?" And I was like, "That's a great question. Let's try and find out."
How did you actually conceptualize the project in how you were going to actually do this?
Yeah, well, we started to kind of put together like the list of like, where do you go? I mean, where do you even start this? Who would you talk to? Like, who are the people that we wanted to try and have be a part of the film? And about 2 months into that process of just trying to wrap our heads around it was when we found out my wife Alex was going to have our first child, and that really kind of shifted the focus for me in a big way away from just being about, where is this guy? Why haven't we found him? To what kind of a world are we about to bring a kid into?
Had you already set your production time when you were going to go over to the Middle East and obviously out to shoot, or did that hurry along the project because of your wife's impending birth?
Yeah, no, I think that definitely changed the quickness with which we had to get the film finished, or at least try to go overseas and come back, because the deal Alex made with me, she finally said, "Fine, you can make this film, but you have to be here when I have the baby." And so I was like, "Done. I'll make it."
Yeah. So what sort of time frame did you have to actually go to the Middle East and overseas to shoot the film?
Yeah, it was about 4.5 months. I was gone for about half her pregnancy. I got back about 2 to 3 weeks before she had the baby. And we went back the next year and just did some pickup interviews in a couple places. Nothing too dangerous. When we went back, just some additional pickup interviews that we needed.
Did you actually write a screenplay or key points that you wanted to focus on, or whilst you were going around shooting your material, that was kind of focusing your work?
I think that for us, for me as a filmmaker, the whole script writing doesn't come till you're done. Like we have some general ideas of where we want to go, and you write questions that you want to ask people in an interview, but that's pretty much all we write before we dive in. We talk about where we want to go and what ground we want to cover, but until you get in the edit, that's when you really start to put the puzzle together. That's when we start really writing the film. That's when we write the voiceover. That's when we start to, pick the pieces that are going to fit to tell the story the best way we possibly can.
And what I thought was fantastic is that the fact that you went through the first segment of the film, prepping, going to these training and survivalists and all that.
Yeah.
How was that process? Did you realise there was such a movement that one could easily access, like almost semi-military training in the United States?
Yeah, well, this is actually run by former military guys. These guys are all British SAS soldiers that run this one particular training I did. And it's intense, and the whole goal is to prepare people like me and you to going overseas. Like this course I took was strictly for journalists, filmmakers, people who are going to suddenly find themselves in a war zone, who still have a job to do, and basically our job was to try and tell a story and capture the footage and get out safely.
So this is basically Israel, and that's the Gaza Strip. And it's pretty scary. It is really scary. Imagine that rolling up over your hill, coming at your house. I mean, imagine living like this. Imagine this is how you live every single day.
holy shit.
One of the things, obviously, during you going to such a volatile area of the world, was there any moments where you really did feel like you were in danger? I suspect probably the obvious would be is when you're actually with the military, the US Special Forces.
Yeah.
Was there any other times past that it really started to get hair-raising? I
think there's times, that you just feel like you're being watched. Like there were times where we were being followed by Special Forces, or being followed by the secret police, the ISI in Pakistan. When we were shooting on the streets of Pakistan, suddenly that crowd of people would gather at times while you're doing an interview or speaking to someone, and you'd see somebody take out their cell phone and they call somebody, and our fixer would be like, "We need to get out of here." And it's like, "Why? What's up?" And he goes, "Well, that guy just called and said there's some Americans here filming," and hung up the phone. And you don't know who they're calling. You don't know what's that about. So you just want to pack your stuff up and get out as quickly as you can.
And your actual production team, what was your actual setup now? You mentioned the word fixer.
Yeah.
For those that's probably not familiar with what was your crew that you used whilst you were going to, in particular, the Middle Eastern countries?
Yeah, very small. For me, I really try and stay as under the radar as we possibly can. So it was myself, it was a cameraman, and then we would hire a local producer who would kind of help us navigate once we hit the ground. So it was very, very small.
Yeah. And one of the great things about the film is the fact of all the stylised stuff, the video game sequences, and the opening's fantastic.
Oh, thanks.
With You Can't Touch This.
Right.
That sort of concept, was that something you had intended to do after or prior to shooting the film, or was that something that came in the edit suite that you sort of thought that you wanted to stylise it for a younger audience? Because it feels that was what the angle was for it.
Yeah. No, for me, that all comes in post. That all comes when you start trying to put it together, because there's things you want to use to bridge gaps, to bridge historical gaps as well as film gaps. Things that'll start to tie, links in the chain, tie things together, tie ideas and thoughts together. And the animation sequences for me are just a great way to get some really dense, heavy material out there in a very fun, palatable way. The video game, we got an idea. That came to me one night when I was about to go to sleep. I keep a notepad next to my bed where I write stuff down when I wake up in the middle of the night. And sometimes, you wake up and you write things down that make sense. Other times, they're crazy. But that was one of them that I could actually read what I wrote. And so we went and met with the guys who actually created the video game Rock Band were the guys who did our whole video game animation for that. And same thing with You Can't Touch This. I just thought that was because the idea, the ridiculousness of seeing Osma Bin Laden dancing in a cave, I thought was great. Yeah.
And look, with I thought one of the unusual moments was the hostility that the Orthodox Jews displayed towards you when you're in the town. How was that feeling when the crowd, the individual, not all of it was quite hostile? Because that's sort of not an image that everyone's thinking it's going to be the Islamic people, and suddenly in this moment in the film, you sort of get hit up in the street and you get reaching a difficult audience. How did that come about, and how long did it actually go on for, that particular scene?
Yeah, I mean, we were surprised more than anybody about what happened there. Because even our local producer that we hired, our local fixer in Jerusalem, was like, "No, I go in there all the time and do interviews. It's fine. We'll go ask a couple questions, then we'll move on." And so we go in there, and it escalated really quickly. I mean, it was probably in a period of about 20, 25 minutes, that it just went, full bore. And our producer got so freaked out. I mean, he got on the phone and called the police to come basically escort us out. But it got really, really aggressive. And for me, what I thought was the best part about that scene in the movie is the guy who makes it such a point to seek me out. The guy who makes it, he's so worried about how I'm perceiving the situation that he wants to come over and say, "Listen, what you see here, the majority of us don't think like them. Those few crazy people aren't us." And I think there's a great parallel between that scene that you see and kind of what's happened, throughout the Middle East since 9/11.
Yeah. And touching on the 9/11 thing.
Yeah.
What was it that really that you felt about going to that part of the world, in particular? Because I mean, the film's designed for a global audience, but you can see that it resonates more with Americans because there's a perceived lack of knowledge of Middle Eastern affairs and all that.
Sure.
Was that something that you felt that had been misrepresented in the mainstream media on the Fox and the CNN networks, that you felt that you needed to go there and maybe look for the real story?
Well, I think what's important about the film, that when I turn on the major network news stations in the States, all I see are the same talking heads. You see the same politicians. You see the same journalists. And you rarely get to hear from the people. And that's the story for me, the story of these people that we never give FaceTime to, that you never give airtime to. Like, it's their story, and hearing from them, I think, is one of the most beautiful things in the movie. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And with one thing with the current forms of documentary style, I mean, your particular films, both Super Size Me and Where Is Osama, they've both been fresh, and I know that some people have been probably slightly critical of the documentarian taking part in the story.
Sure.
Was it something that you felt was lacking in documentary, as you know, in the past, or you felt like that you thought it was a good way of driving the story on, placing yourself as part of a key element in those stories?
Right. Well, you know, when we started off with Super Size Me, which was really a fluke more than anything else, because when we originally got the idea, I was going to have somebody else do the experiment, and I was just going to shoot the film. And then the more we talked about it, the more I realized I couldn't trust that when that person went home at the end of the day, that they wouldn't like sneak some carrots on the side. You know, they wouldn't like get themselves a salad, you know, a non-McDonald's salad or something with broccoli, you know, in the behind closed doors. So. Once I did that film and and then we moved on and did a TV series, I just really found the whole kind of immersion journalism, you know, this whole idea of putting yourself in a situation that most people will never be in, speaking to people most of us will never get to talk to, was just I mean, I really got a lot out of that whole experience. And I think this going on this vicarious journey where you're trusting in me to be honest with you and tell you how I feel and tell you what's happening in real time, that there's something really interesting that, you know, hopefully when I feel something, you feel something. When I learn something, you learn something. I think there's a great trade-off that comes out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, it's interesting to sort of map in the last 4 or 5 years your career has gone so successful. But I believe that you actually was an NYU graduate back in 1993.
Yeah.
It's 11 years onwards that Super Size Me come along. What were you doing in preceding time?
Yeah.
Were you making documentaries? Were you working in fictional?
Yeah.
Because it's something that's kind of glossed over a lot of times. What was Morgan Spurlock doing?
What was I doing?
Those,
nothing. I wasn't doing a thing. Yeah, I was just sitting around doing nothing. You know, that's the thing, is like William H. Macy said it best when he blew up a few years ago. He was like, yeah, it took me 20 years to become an overnight success, you know, and people don't realize that there's all this work that goes into getting you to that one moment when something finally clicks. You know, I was working in production in New York City. I was working on any film I could get a job on. I started directing like really no budget, you know, commercials and music videos, and made some short docs in the meantime and some short films, but nothing that ever really hit. And then we created a TV show on the web called I Bet You Will that we ended up selling to MTV, and that was kind of our first success. You know, we actually had a show on network television, and we did 53 episodes of this show for the network, and then when they finally canceled it, we took that little money that we had left over and said, let's make a movie, and that was Super Size Me.
Oh, that's great. Now, what's actually next for yourself?
Yeah, well, my wife's telling me I need to make a film about how to make my wife really happy. You know, I need to like spend some time at home. You know, but so my next film, I just signed on to be one of the directors for. There was a really successful book in the States called Freakonomics, and we're breaking that book up into like 6 parts, where 6 really great doc directors that I have so much respect for, like Alex Gibney and Eugene Jarecki, Jahan Nujaim, who did Control Room, like all of these really gifted people are each going to do a piece, and so I'm going to do one of those this fall, and we'll shoot the whole thing in New York. So I'll be home with my wife and son through most of the fall, so that'll be good. And then next spring, I'll move on to something a little bigger.
All right. Well, Morgan, thanks for taking the time.
My pleasure, man. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Throughout history, mankind has gone to the ends of the earth to chase the greatest treasures. Now, the final search begins for the most elusive prize of them all.
Yoo-hoo! Osama!
If I've learned anything from big-budget action movies, it's that complicated global problems are best solved by one lonely guy.
Where are you going to be going?
We're going to go look for Osama Bin Laden.
Okay.
If I'm going to find Osama, then I'm going to be traveling to some pretty scary places.
This course is reality-based protection.
Turn away from the grenade.
Move! How do I say, don't take me, take the cameraman?
I'm looking for Osama Bin Laden. Why is that funny?
We don't know whether he's in a cave with the door shut.
I was wondering if we could ask you a question.
No.
Or a cave with the door open.
I got a tip on where to find his uncle, Mahfouz Azzam.
You wouldn't turn him in for the $25 million?
But I'm a wanderlust king.
It's impossible. Mission is impossible.
This is hardcore Taliban country.
There's 21 guys here with guns.
When whoever's escorting us says, let's go, it means go now.
Let's go now!
We ask every time, hey, you guys know where Osama's at? And they always point.
Jittadai Osama.
So that way.
Where in the world is Osama Bin Laden?
This is a good moisturizer. It'll keep my hands really soft. Yeah? And do you know where I could find Osama Bin Laden?
What?